everyone, and welcome to Chatty AF, the Anime Feminist podcast. My name's Amelia. I'm joined here today by Peter Phobian and Miles Thomas. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Peter Phobian. I'm an Associates Features Editor at Crunchyroll and a contributor and editor at Anime Feminist. No features.
Hi, I'm Miles Thomas, and this morning, to get ready for this podcast, I was looking for my mic, and accidentally 3 different SHIROBAKO wall scrolls fell on top of my head.
Is that true?
That's absolutely true. So,
and that's why we've invited you here today.
So we are
now we are now in the third part of our 4-part SHIROBAKO Watchalong, where we watch 6 episodes at a time. Peter and I have not seen SHIROBAKO before. We're only watching up to the 6 episodes, and then we're talking through them with Miles, who is a long-time SHIROBAKO fan and generally accepted, I'm just going to say expert, but how would you describe yourself, Miles?
I mean, I get recognized at conventions as, hey, you're that SHIROBAKO guy, so I think I think that's good enough for me.
Okay, I'll be saying that instead of expert then. Fantastic.
There we go.
Okay, so this week we're looking at episodes 13 through 18. The first half of the second core, I guess. And we're going to look back and see what our hopes were for these episodes when we last recorded a week ago, based on what we'd seen up to episode 12. So, Peter, what were your hopes and how did it shape up?
Let's see, I said I wanted to see more from me and Ree's side, which I'm not sure if that really... Well, we didn't see much from for the CG, just a couple scenes where she was animating stuff. I'm actually not clear if she's doing work for their Aerial Girl series, because I thought I saw her animating a plane, which I thought was kind of funny, because she was probably just going to do some tires on planes instead of cars. But yeah, I'm not quite clear on what's going on with her. I guess we got a lot from, I guess she's Diesel-san now, that she's joined the team as their kind of like script researcher to find out more information about planes, which I thought was I wanted to know more about how she might get into the industry, and I think this was a pretty interesting trajectory to take, just like researching really obscure facts that they need to make it kind of sort of accurate when they want it to be accurate, and then getting hired on that way. So that was pretty cool. I wanted to keep up with the fan service, or like the lack thereof, and I think it was pretty good. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Amelia, but I didn't really notice any terrible moments.
I think the moment I was most kind of going ugh at was the calisthenics.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just completely pointless, and it just seems to be to show Emma being really cute. And then to show it kind of serves a story purpose afterwards when Iguchi is dealing with a little bit of artist block. But I just saw that and
yeah,
I wanted it to move on very quickly.
I think they did one scene where it was, I may be wrong, I think there was one like short transition where there was a perspective from underneath the desk kind of looking up at the character who was sitting at their desk, if that makes sense. Very brief. Although I've also been watching Star Driver, where that is like one of the most common perspectives. So I may have overlapped that a little bit. I remember, I think there was at least one. Then I also wanted to see how production is restructured and if there was upward mobility for Aoi. I actually thought Erika was going to end up being in charge, but it looks like her father having health issues was a bigger problem. So now I guess it's called Desk. I'd never heard of this before. So she's basically like the head person for production for the entire studio, which is good. I'm glad they chose her. And the reasons for that were pretty obvious. It was because she was good at her job and she was not Tarou.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
It's all it takes.
And seeing, they did cover a lot of how they kind of like reset after an anime and all the steps they take leading into how they set up for Aerial Girls, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I got...
But that episode, there was one episode, wasn't there, where it was just exposition.
I mean, if you want to talk about this now, yeah, I'm happy to.
Let's talk about it quickly now.
Okay.
So the little pirate girl and the bear. Right?
Quick question for Miles. Was there like a change in directors between season 1 and season 2 that I'm not aware of?
No. Honestly, I feel like that exposition episode was more it came after a 1 week break. There was the Christmas or New Year's break or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there was a new episode, and then they're like, hey, we're going to do stuff, and then explain what you just saw. And I just...
Yeah.
It probably was a different writing staff, but, like, no, it was for our specific writer on that episode, but no, the staff was pretty consistent from core to core.
That's weird. It's such a tonal shift, because I know before the two, like the little pirate girl and the teddy bear, were kind of like ways of figuring out what Aoi was thinking, because they were kind of like her internal monologue. Now they're just these entirely separate like avatars of the animation studio, I guess. It's like completely from out of Aoi's perspective, because they're talking about she's like fine with what's going on, but they're saying like this is annoying, or I don't know. It's not in her head anymore. And yeah, basically what you said, it's just this weird expositionary tool, which is completely unnecessary because the writing's so good that they're accomplishing exactly what they're trying to achieve with those characters. So
and they have the device of new employees right there. They even use that device, and then they still have the bear and the pirate girl explaining everything.
I didn't understand, because I was like, oh, that's cool, that's what that meeting is. And then she goes, so what was that meeting all about? I'm like, oh, really? Really, little pirate girl? You didn't get that? When she asked what a PV was, I felt like, I'm like, do you not even watch TV? Like, I don't understand.
Someone on my Twitter made a really interesting point, the idea that the bear is kind of Aoi's artistic side, and that the pirate girl represents kind of her more business-focused side. Yeah. And that the dialogue between the two of them kind of represents her internal monologue. But they've stopped using it that way, as you said.
Yeah, they're not. So, that's not Aoi anymore. It's just like these
weird
spirits that inhabit the animation studio and apparently don't know anything about animation. Well, I guess the bear knows everything, and the pirate girl doesn't know anything.
So that was a little bit of frustration.
Yeah.
It was just a shame, because the story's been unfolded so carefully, I think, and then that one episode, it just felt like a brick had been dropped on it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like out of nowhere they decided they need training wheels for the information, where they
exactly.
Literally for like 14 episodes they'd been doing a great job. So
yeah.
Odd.
However, I was really pleased to see Aoi get some upward mobility.
Yep.
And I thought that I thought it was well done in the sense that they did get Erika kind of out of the way, so that Aoi really had to step up. Mm-hmm. And it means that now Erika's just come back at the end of episode 18. The two of them are more like peers. So Erika is going to be supporting her as kind of the senpai kohai thing, but they're now much more on an equal level than they were when Erika left. And I think that relationship will be really interesting to explore. Whereas if Erika had stayed around, Aoi would have been very much in the junior position the entire time.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have seen as much of her potential. As like somebody mentions at one point, you're a natural at this. And that was fantastic to see.
Yeah, and they've kept consistent with Aoi's strengths, I think, because she gets that one moment where like all that stuff's coming out at the same time, and then she kind of just decides to what's that called, triage. And also when they're trying to get that guy to draw the ruins in the background, they want to get this really famous guy to do it. And she's like, I'll ask him. They're like, wait, you're gonna go to this industry legend and ask him if he's gonna draw stuff for our like new anime and nobody likes us. She's like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? You say no. And they're like, oh, wow.
I think
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that built on so nicely her experiences previously with both Kanno,
yep,
who was this industry legend that she just rocks up to his house late at night and has a chat with him and asks him to work on her emergency. And also with Sugie, who was this legend who was just in the corner of their office and she had no idea. I thought it was really nice that it seems like to her the world of legends is becoming a bit smaller and a bit more within reach. That felt like a really suitable development for her.
Yeah, it seems like she gets starstruck a lot, but she's never afraid to talk to them or even ask them for things.
I envy that. I was really pleased with that. How did you feel about this 6 episodes compared to the previous?
I don't know if I liked it as much as the past 6, actually. Oh. If it was just like a one-off with the bear and the girl, with that, but it's sort of become like a consistent piece of writing where they keep talking about stuff, and it's just like, even though I like basically everything that's happening in the show, that is wearing on me. I wish it wasn't happening.
That's amazing. I knew they bothered you. I didn't realize they got under your skin quite that much that they're ruining the show for you.
It's just like this really bad bit of writing that I'm constantly getting bludgeoned with, and it's not. Every time I see them now, I just groan inside my head. So, and that wasn't happening in the past 6 episodes. Also, I'm noticing like a weird kind of tonal shift in the way they talk in the office. I don't really remember them saying like blatantly sexist stuff before, but I think that's sort of become part of that's another reason why I asked about the new director, if there was a new director, because there's been like some commentary in the office that's kind of like it wasn't there before, but like some pretty bad statements, I think.
What are you thinking of?
When the director was describing how he wanted different characters animated, he said, I want one of them to have gentle femininity, so that means she has to be clumsy and fall down a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And then when that was the director again, they're taking reference shots at the airport. They're talking about Diesel-san, and she says, "Oh, I'll just bring my friend in." And it's like, "Oh, is it a guy you know?" And she goes, "No, it's this girl. She's going to college." And he goes, "Oh, it's a military otaku, right? I thought that'd be a dude." And unfortunately, the guy next to him, he just goes, "That's sexist."
That's it. Because they included that. Because they included that, it didn't feel to me. It didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I guess the fact that he thinks that way, it's like, of course he thinks.
I was glad he got the call out right away. And then the last one that I remember was she was talking about how all of them had gone to an all girls school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he went like an all girls school, huh? And she said, "Please stop imagining whatever you're imagining right now."
What she says to him is, "You know what? You're going to be really disappointed." Yeah. And I thought that was so true to my experiences in anime fandom. And you see these things like glorified, like the relationships between sisters and things like that.
Yeah.
And you see these things really set up as something that they're just not. So I quite appreciated the fact that he's going, "Oh yeah, all girls high school," and they're like, "No, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about."
Yeah. The other one I feel like I don't mind as much was where they were all having the discussion over which voice actors they should hire, and there were just those awful people that they had to listen to, like giving absolutely useless input. The one who I guess one was about popularity, the other one only cared if they could sing, and the last guy basically just cared how big their chest was, and that was it. Yeah. And I guess that's like they're trying to show you how awful that aspect of production is, because you get a bunch of people who like aren't part of the creative process giving input on the creative process.
Yeah.
I took 3 screenshots of the girl on the computer because they kept cutting to her just looking at those guys typing. She had the best expression on her face. Like
I wasn't sure who she was though.
I think she was from Out of the Office or something like that. Yeah, she wasn't a consistent character, but she was not. She was
not impressed.
Yeah, not happy to be there right then.
I don't blame her at all. I wanted to ask about that scene though. Was that ad-libbed?
That scene was entirely ad-libbed, actually.
Okay.
Oh wow.
But it definitely comes from a place of what production committees probably feel like, because you hear of these business interests time in and time out when talking about anime, because an anime isn't made by a studio, really. An anime is made by a production committee who chooses a lot of the details about how that anime is formed. Usually it's not studios who come up with an idea for, "Hey, we want to make this anime next." It's a production committee coming up to a studio and saying, "Hey, we'd really like to pay you this amount to make this specific anime. Go crazy, it's yours now, like it's in your hands." Or they'll try and recruit a studio to become a member of the production committee, which kind of seems to be the case with this one, where Musani will get a share of the pie. But as you can see, a share of the pie is not enough to determine everything, and these crazy interests are out to get you. And I loved this scene. It was so cringe-inducing the entire time, and I was rolling my eyes, but it felt very realistic and accurate.
Yeah, there was one moment where one of the guys delivers his line where he just stutters for a moment, and I heard that and I was like, that's not a smooth line delivery, and it just made me wonder, like, was this scripted at all? And I'm not surprised actually that it wasn't, but it ran so smoothly, I think you wouldn't have known otherwise.
I'm really glad you caught that. That's a really good eye for that.
Yeah, I didn't have any idea.
It was It was a really great scene. Once I kind of figured out that it might have been ad-libbed, I kind of heard it again, and it was really impressive. It was great improvisation.
Yeah, they really tied it together visually. Like, I could tell, like, how not entertained everybody on the Usagi side was.
Yeah. So it was a nice insight, actually, because I just assumed, I don't know, I guess I'm used to the more kind of traditional storytelling kind of narrative where you would expect that everything goes the way they want it to. You would have expected Shizuka to get the job for a start. I thought it was a really nice touch that the director says, you know, she really has something, but there's two people who are better than her.
Oh, I bet you.
And who are better prospects than her. I thought that was a really nice touch.
I bet you she's getting the job, though. The person she was replaced with is, I guess, pretty famous, and like they said, we got to get her quick. She has 2 other obligations or something like that. I'm pretty sure she's going to make her way into the anime somehow.
Maybe into the anime. I don't think she'll get that job, but maybe she'll be given a part later. That would be really nice.
That's my...
Because right now she's the only one not working on it, I think, which is so sad.
Yeah, and they have 6 episodes left. She has to do something, so I feel
she has to do something.
I mean, if she doesn't, that'll be really weird. I think, unless it like wants to get really freaking real, and she like decides that she's never going to get a role, and then she lives the rest of her life working as a bartender. I don't think that's going to happen. So my theory right now, I'm calling it, is that something happens and she ends up playing whoever it was they asked her to do during the audition.
I don't think that. Okay, here's my prediction. I don't think she's going to get the part that she auditioned for, either of the parts she auditioned for. But I think maybe if they end up redoing the end, perhaps adding in a new character and saying this girl would be perfect for this, I think she'll end up coming in a bit later as a different character. And maybe it'll be written for her, but that would be perhaps a bit too good luck. I don't know, but I think she'll come in as a different character, and it'll just be because the director remembered her and was really impressed by her audition still. So she'll still get the validations. She'll still get to be a part of this anime.
Yeah.
So the others are all in.
We do agree that she's going to be on Aerial Girls, though.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it would be a bit too much if she isn't by the end of it in some capacity.
Yeah, I that's why I was wondering whether the CG girl. God, I can't remember her name. I can't remember if she's Ri or Mi.
Misa?
Yeah.
She's Mi.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering whether she was already working on the anime doing planes or not. I don't know if they've tied that in yet, or if I just saw random clips of her and assumed that that's what she was working on.
I think it was the fact that when they're in the bar, she she's
she said
she'd auditioned for that bit, and they said we're all working on this.
Yeah.
I think she was actually doing the tire of a Jeep when
that's
when
right.
she gets praised.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that was the scene where they confirmed she was working on it, but I don't know if they'd really like straight out said it before that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't remember. Okay. I wanted, from these 6 episodes, I wanted more about Segawa. We're not getting anything on Segawa. No. It's feeling a little bit like we're just not going back to Segawa, which makes me very sad.
She got a great scene, though, where she
thing?
tells the new production assistant, she's like, I'm going to have to rely on you directly in front of Tarou. And they went, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but it's not as much as I'd hoped for. She is the most senior woman in the entire cast that I recall, and we don't see her like as much as the other people of her level, I guess, and that's a bit of a shame. But never mind, I'm just writing that off now. I'm just not expecting that anymore. I wanted something positive to happen to Shizuka, which was not necessarily getting an anime job. And this is it's a bit bittersweet because something positive has happened. The director has really noticed her.
Yeah.
And she got to audition for a second part within her audition because they liked her so much, but it's not quite as positive as it could be.
She also showed her...
Well, she got to be the pickle girl.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
The
pickle pig.
She did very well there. I'm sure
pig.
it felt like a triumph. But it was good, actually. It showed her improvisational skills, which I thought was quite a nice touch. Because we've only seen her reading scripts, really, so far. And that might be something that comes in handy at some point in the future.
I feel
that
like...
was something I really... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I feel like that scene was used as the basis for Sakura Quest.
I have to catch up on Sakura Quest.
Yeah, they have almost the same thing happens. I think it's in episode 3 or 4, except it's a chupacabra.
Oh, really? Is it like homage?
I don't know. Maybe they just thought that. I don't know how that concept came up, but I feel like I was like, man, this really is like reminding me of that scene. But that probably has nothing to do with it. It's a pickled pig after all.
One point I really liked that they made in this set of episodes, I think it was Me who did this. She said that the experience you have before helps you in the future, even if you can't see it at the time. That was such a great point, and that is absolutely reflected in my own career. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it seemed like really good, not advice exactly, but it was a really important perspective, and it's the kind of thing you can only really realize when you get a little bit further in your career. And it's really nice that we have characters who are kind of adult enough and at the point where they can start recognizing these realities of working life.
Yeah, or I remember I wrote something down when she said that line, because it's like, even if you hated the job, it might have given you a skill or two that helps you out later on.
Yeah, I think I wrote it down as well. It was, you never know what experience will be useful where, I think.
Nice moment.
It was a really great point. Speaking of which, I wanted her to be rewarded for taking a risk with her career, and she was. She ended up working on the same anime with her friends, and I'm so pleased.
Yeah.
So I think she's in a smaller company. There is more of a risk to it, but she's working on kind of the same sorts of things as she did before, but now it's about telling a story, and that was... I'm so pleased that worked out for her. I was worried for her. And I wanted Tarou to be punished for being the worst. That hasn't really happened because he's so oblivious. He isn't bothered at all by someone junior to him being promoted above him. So he's not feeling like it's a punishment at all. He thinks like the path's just being left clear to him to go straight to become a director. So
yeah, I do appreciate that, like, they've ratcheted up how little respect everybody has for him, but it doesn't seem like he gives a shit when people are constantly telling him that he's useless and needs to leave.
He doesn't care. He doesn't feel it that way at all. He's just like, yes, it's right that you should be taking on these little jobs that have no relevance to my career as a director.
Well, maybe he'll...
Maybe he'll what? Have you got a prediction?
No. I was hoping he'd have like his existential crisis where he realizes he's never going to get that job, and then he's like, oh, maybe. Yeah. I don't think so though. He's just. Well,
we talked about this in an episode, didn't we? Where Miles asked us if we think he's going to be redeemed, and you've heard something about this, so you can't give a spoiler-free view.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's looking increasingly likely that he will not be redeemed. I'm hoping he'll get a wake-up call at some point, as I said in that episode as well, but it really doesn't look like anything can penetrate that thick skin of his.
Well, like somebody, like the president of the company sitting him down and saying, you will never be a director, ever.
Oh, I don't... I think maybe...
Why would he do that?
He wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's like the only way I think he would realize it, though.
Like, I think even then, I don't think that would sink in. I think if it's...
He would be challenged.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, he's like, I gotta work harder. And by that I mean continue to coast.
Yeah, I'd like him to take Aoi's success a little bit more seriously and really recognise that it has consequences for him, that she's able to progress and he's effectively being held back through his own complete lack of capability. But it doesn't seem like that's happening anytime soon. We'll find out in the next 6 episodes, I guess.
Yep.
So in these episodes, okay, one big thing I really wanted to talk about. We finally found out why Ogasawara wears the gothic Lolita clothing. We finally found out.
Yeah.
Peter, how did you feel about that revelation?
If I'll like use an example. You know how everybody says like Keijo, and I'm gonna say we're starting with Keijo. Like it's okay because all the girls are down and everything like that. Like they're happy to be wearing bikinis and trying to push each other into the water with using only their chest and their butts. It's kind of like on that where in universe it kind of makes sense, but like if you sort of look at the level of realism in the series and try to assess that and like I don't know, take it seriously, I kind of was just like this still seems like an excuse. Does that make sense?
Miles, you want to comment on that?
So I think it was in the first episode I said they explain it and it makes it kind of better, but at the same time it also circumvents it in a frustrating way. And I do think that they get there. I do. I think they justify why she's wearing it, and I think it feels real enough to me that it puts it a little beyond, we're just here because we wanted to have a goth loli character. But at the same time, I think it's fair to be frustrated with this revelation. Even if I personally think that it feels real enough to me that I'm like, okay, there we go. It's explained to me.
At least they went to the trouble, is what you're saying.
No, I thought it was I actually liked it. I liked her explanation. It felt like something that I would find in a real person. I mean, we have someone in our office who kind of does the same thing. She wears gothic Lolita outfits on days when she needs to be strong, because that's what she feels strongest in. And so maybe it's because I have that direct personal relationship with someone who's like that, and it's not really treated as weird, even in like America, that like I'm able to buy in. But I think at the same time, you know, they're trying to make the character more appealing. So
yeah, this is a tough one. It's from my perspective, I really like the donning armor idea. I really love it when anime and manga do this. Princess Jellyfish is a really obvious example. They have this whole theme of putting on clothes and makeup and accessories is putting on armor. And that presents you in a particular way to other people that makes it more likely for you to get what you need from them. And there's truth to that. There really is. And I don't own anything remotely gothic Lolita, but I do put on makeup on days when I really need to present myself in a certain way, or I need to feel a bit more confident. I maybe will spend a bit more time on my hair, or maybe be more likely to wear certain kinds of clothes on days when I really do need that extra boost. And, you know, the days when I'm most like slovenly are probably some of the days when I'm not feeling as much myself. So the core of this, I really do appreciate. The fact that it was wrapped up in gothic Lolita specifically, that perhaps particularly didn't ring true to me. I have a few friends who wear Lolita fashion. It's a really high cost, high energy, high commitment hobby. I say hobby, I mean it's a fashion choice, and it's a very expensive one, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of work. So that part felt like it was a bit too much, but at the same time it's an exaggerated representation of something that did feel very real, if that makes sense.
Mm. And I do, she kind of does, in acting the goth lolly part, you know, always drinking tea, having like very a flat affect, I feel like that has kind of realistically portrayed some interactions she's had where people like didn't quite know how to argue with her, I guess. Like when she said she wasn't going to do the character designs, the director just like, he didn't know what to do, because she basically said it very flatly and like a statement, and it didn't feel like he even knew how he could get footing in that argument against her, so he just sort of had to accept that she wasn't going to do it. So in that regard, I kind of see it working, and I can kind of imagine being in the same situation and not knowing how to argue with somebody who was just like, oh, I'm not going to do that, and then sips their tea, because it's kind of like you're interacting with a character, and I think I wouldn't know how to handle that situation either. So in that way, I can see how it would actually even work.
Yeah. And it was striking, the contrast between Ogasawara when she's in her gothic Lolita mode and the flashbacks we see of her when she's in jeans and t-shirt and she hasn't dyed her hair, and she's much more emotionally expressive. Mm-hmm. And she's much more kind of troubled by events in the workplace. Whereas when we see her, you know, from the start of the series onwards, she is very much in control of her situation. She is supportive of the people around her. That continues. I love the fact that she put forward Iguchi and says, you know, she's not done this before, but she's more than capable, and she's definitely the one you should work with. Mm-hmm. And again, that's her kind of taking control away from the director almost, because she says, you know, I know this situation best. This is definitely what's best for production. And, you know, whether she's right or whether she's wrong, the fact is that she is confident enough and calm enough that she is able to make her point, and it is taken seriously. Yeah.
And Ichi herself, I think, like, she gets shot down a number of times before she even really seems to get discouraged. And at that point, it's like, I think Ogasawara kind of points out that they're not really helping her at all, and that's become an issue, because they get, like, the vaguest statement as to how to correct it. Like, I think the author doesn't, he just says it's not her character or something like that. Just something completely unhelpful. And they said, since you're in creative control of this, you need to, like, help her figure out what he is asking for so she can make it happen for you. The way Iguchi approached the problem as well was pretty good. Like, it wasn't just like she immediately lost hope and then they had to go to the batting cages for some reason. It was a process.
What did you think about that? Her oasis being
I liked that.
Is it batting cages they're called?
Yeah, I could it's kind of like a working out your frustration kind of thing. Like I see I don't know if I see a whole lot of stuff like that, especially with female characters, and to have it be like something that's kind of typically masculine and it be a physical exercise, which I think is generally what people retreat to when they're trying to work out frustration. Like, actually hitting 90-mile-per-hour fastballs is probably a good way. That's like a realistic way where you're just like, okay, because it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a good thing to say it's like violent, but yeah, it's pretty violent. So yeah, that's like that made sense to me. I was like, okay, I can see why she goes to the batting cages. I thought that was a pretty cool character quirk. That was not where I was expecting they would end up.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where they were going with it at first, because we've seen that Iguchi's kind of calm space to reflect and take a break from her work is like this really idyllic wood setting with a cat. And then Ogasawara like goes straight to baseball. It was again a nice contrast. And it perhaps felt like a holdover from her life back when she was in jeans and t-shirts and getting frustrated with her job more often, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's a part of her identity that's perhaps remained consistent.
Yeah, she was kind of superhuman too. She threw that underhand pitch so hard she backflipped.
Yeah. And they said this could be an anime. And they cut away to that for a moment.
I like the character.
And yeah, it felt really true, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one moment that was awful, which was, do you remember that moment where you just have this like soft focus image of Aoi and Emma like clinging to Iguchi, and they're all in like gothic lolita clothing in their imagination?
Yeah. Or they were.
It's just really this really kind of soft focus sexualized moment it just felt unnecessary.
Super unnecessary.
Really unnecessary. So that was the one moment that really stood out to me. I mentioned Emma's calisthenics earlier, but actually that was nothing compared to this.
There's a little context with Emma's calisthenics where it's like a studio trope to have. There's this thing called the egg dance. Mm-hmm. They include it up to this point, they'd included it in some way in most of their series. And so, like, that's more of a nod to them. I actually don't like that scene, but people are obsessed with it.
Yeah. I mean...
So, like, I share it as Crunchyroll and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed it on Crunchyroll, actually.
And radio calisthenics on the roof is a Japanese business thing. Like, that's very common. It's just the specific calisthenics she was doing were, like, not...
I mean, I wasn't even bothered by the calisthenics she was doing, but it was like, yeah, of course you would have the kind of most cutest, most reserved member of the cast go out onto the roof on her own and do these calisthenics alone. That's so moe, right?
Yeah.
So it just felt like
and then
this is for the fans. And, you know, we talk about fan service as if it's just like physical characteristics. That moment felt like fan service because it didn't seem to contribute to anything. Mm. It could have just as easily been the whole team, or it could have been a male character. It could have been like somebody like Iguchi rather than Emma. You know, well, it couldn't have been Iguchi herself, but it could have been Ogasawara. It could have been anyone that wasn't Emma herself, because she is really adorable and she's really beloved, I'm sure. And rightly so. I don't object to that in the slightest. But the fact is that they pick this one character to come out and do these calisthenics, and it just doesn't feel like it's for the story at that point. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about are the new employees. We had a number of new employees in these episodes. We had 2 production assistants, Andou, who has the streaks in her hair, and Satou, who wanted to cut down her commute. So they interviewed something like 5 candidates before. I think 2 of them were women, and both of the women got hired. And then we had a new animator called Kunogi. And we had a experienced production assistant called Hiraoka. So I want to look at Kunogi first. Peter, how do you feel about her?
I don't really like her.
Why not?
I think it would be kind of interesting to have somebody who had a lot of anxiety about, like, talking, but instead she's just making these really weird baby noises and, like, doing hand gestures and stuff, so she needs, like, an interpreter most of the time. It's just, like, a weird kind of, I guess, meant to be cute character trait that it seems really out of place.
That was pretty much how I felt. It seemed like Emma had a really believable amount of self-doubt.
Yeah.
And her journey in the workplace feels really relatable, I think, where she starts off really like not believing in her own abilities at all. And she's not as good as she needs to be at that point, but the point is that she will grow, she'll improve. And at this point she is mentoring, I guess, or not necessarily mentoring, but supporting a newer member of staff. That's great. But Kunogi walks in and is just completely helpless And that's just a step too far, it feels like.
I was trying to imagine what her interview looked like.
Yeah.
Because it just
like,
wouldn't...
how would she even get there?
It wouldn't be an interview, right? I mean, even if her work looks great...
You don't need an interview.
Huh? Do you not interview for...
You wouldn't really need an interview for that kind of role. You just show them your portfolio, pretty much.
Okay.
Okay, and they just say, like, you could email it to them, and then they'd say, yeah, come in, we're starting on Monday.
Not in so many words, but...
Okay. Right,
it's not, like, again, every studio is different.
Yeah.
Not a lot of studios have in-house key animators necessarily, but this is not an unrealistic way that someone this severe could get a job. I don't find that part unrealistic. This is a detail that it is only obviously being included because people are getting excited about it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
This is fan service. She's an entire fan service character to me.
Yep. That makes sense.
So
it's frustrating to watch. It's like you say, she is practically acting like a baby. It's, with the gestures and the, like, being almost completely non-verbal. And then when she does come out with words, it is just words. It is not full sentences. And she is an adult.
I think like having somebody with her social anxiety would have been interesting for Emma, because she was like that before. So like stepping up for that person, like her dynamic with the character past like literally interpreting is interesting, because she's kind of like mentoring someone who was very similar to her. But the fact that the character is just a caricature kind of I think removes the benefit.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And if she'd just spoken in sentences, or she'd just like whispered everything, or like even written notes, it would have felt a little bit better. But this like desperate toothbrushing gestures in front of them and like pointing at words, it was a bit too much. It was a step too far to be realistic or like believable, I guess, in any way in the workplace. So that was, she was a little bit frustrating. But maybe by the end of the episode, by the end of the series, we will see her grow as well, and maybe be able to exchange sentences with people.
Talk.
Who knows? Andou and Satou, how do you feel about those two?
It depended on the scene. During the meetings, I thought that they were useful for exposition. And I also noticed that they, specifically Andou was, it seemed like she'd actually done a lot of research. She knew a lot about the people she was working for and the different anime they'd made. So I liked that they weren't just coming in like supposedly as completely ignorant, just had watched a Ghibli movie and didn't do any research because they thought the job would be easy, something like that. I also I liked one scene where the director asked them what they thought of, like, I think it was when they were in the color meeting. And when they, like, come back at him, I think he sort of plays off what he asked, but it kind of felt like he wanted to know what their opinion was, or, like, wanted them to voice their opinion at the very least. Yeah. So I thought, I mean, he just goes like, oh, I pretty much decided anyway when they, and I like to believe that he was just saying that to, like, take the pressure off, because they had felt like they had made the decision. So if it didn't work out well, I don't know. Like, that was a kind of a 50-50 scene for me, but I liked it.
See, I thought that he was telling the truth when he said I'd pretty much already decided. I just wanted to see what you thought. We know he's a bit of a weak character in many ways, but he does have a strong vision. Yeah. And it makes sense that he would have a preference. Yeah. And I thought it was a kind of nice validation for them that he says, yes, you're thinking on the same lines as the director. Like you're thinking in the right ways.
Yeah, he basically said that's what I also chose. So
yeah, exactly.
Probably a good choice.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, but then I guess there's like a cartoonish element to each character, so both of them respectively get lost at one point. Yeah. And like their phones die. That was kind of yeah. Once again, it's kind of like a 50-50 scene, because I like the resolution where they both got back, and like obviously it had stressed out Aoi, but she had kind of that was sort of also an opportunity for her to show that she was like good at helping people like get back on whatever they're doing. And then when they came back, she had food for them. So
she's such
a good
boss. Yeah, exactly.
The resolution of that scene was good.
When I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, watching that scene, my thought was just, she's such a good boss. She is a natural manager. And managing people is really hard. And most people aren't naturally good at it. You have to work, you have to learn. And Aoi's just instantly great at this.
Yeah.
I was so impressed.
So I'm glad what they did with that scene. It was a little bit cartoonish that they just like got so like one of them I think just drove straight out of Tokyo somehow. But yeah.
I mean, you say that. I have a terrible sense of direction. That could 100% have been me.
Okay.
I was very sympathetic for that. And the other one fell asleep on the train. And I guess Aoi's ultimate point was, you get tired, you make mistakes. I've been there, I've done that. And that was, I thought, a really nice loop around.
Okay. That might be, come to think of it, I just, maybe I've been lucky with most of my car trips. And Japanese work culture, I guess, falling asleep on the job is actually, that's kind of it shows that you're working hard, right? That's what their perception of it is. So
I think falling asleep on the train's a pretty standard part of your day.
Yeah. So maybe that was a very respectable thing that she did, actually.
I don't know how it was interpreted necessarily in universe, but I didn't think either one was kind of cartoonishly bad.
Yeah.
I thought it felt, I think the one moment I had was when it was Sato, wasn't it, who drove straight out of town, and she was calling from a payphone, and I thought, oh, what? She doesn't have a cell phone. She doesn't have any way to contact them. And then they said, no, she's got no battery. So I was really glad they included that little detail, because I was just thinking, why is she not looking up the maps? You know?
Yeah, that is one thing too. It seems like even if they get into these situations, like some of it, I guess, is just kind of cartoonish too, because the series is a comedy.
Yeah.
But the payoff is very consistently good. Like they had,
yes.
With that scene, it showed that Aoi was a good boss. And with the Iguchi thing, something I didn't mention was that when she finally got it, she was it? She had that moment where she said that she's alive or something like that, and then they ended the episode with the key art or some sort of art of the character that she'd been spending so much time drawing, and then the character moved.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was a good moment. So the payoff at the end is always really, really good.
And as well, with Iguchi's growth, there was a temptation early on just to think the author's being unreasonable and, putting unnecessary demands on them. Is there something more going on here? Is it a bit office politic-y? And then at the end, when she gets it, you realise, oh no, actually the author had a point. There was more work that she could do. There was better that she could achieve. And she ended up achieving something really special. I thought that was a nice point to make, that it wasn't just about unreasonable author, which I had been waiting for. I'm glad it wasn't that way.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, it didn't seem like the author's demands were necessarily that bad, because the whole time they were trying to talk to him directly to get more information from him, and it's just
funny story.
That funny story guy is so shitty that they could never talk to the author. So that was the problem. It wasn't so much that the author didn't like it. It was that they got the information super late and were unable to have a conversation with him because the funny story guy was playing golf or some stupid shit.
In fairness, it didn't seem like the author particularly wanted to talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, if he'd really wanted to, he absolutely could have scheduled a visit, right? He was already communicating with them. He could have said, let's meet and just hash this out, and just chose not to. So I didn't think it was...
Well, they did say he was super busy, on a book tour or something like that. So
that funny story guy said that, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. I know he's not exactly a reliable narrator, is he?
Exactly.
Okay.
Miles, how do you feel about the production assistants and Kunogi? You have a benefit of a bit more knowledge than we do, but do you enjoy watching them?
I remember even just the beginning part where I was first watching this part of the show week to week. And I was at first there are so many great characters I want to spend more time with. I'm a little frustrated that they're just throwing new characters on this already huge cast. Yeah. Especially the fact that they're not based off of real people in the way that a lot of the greater studio cast is. And I was more interested in the kind of behind the scenes stuff, so that would be more interesting to me just inherently, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it was the scene where they get lost that really kind of drove it home to me that I really like these additions to the team. Even if it's just as a vehicle to show off how Aoi has grown or how great of a boss she is, I'm very happy for them. And I feel like it would be hard to really communicate Aoi's growth without that that yardstick of these two girls who are very much in the same kind of world that Aoi was in just a few episodes ago. So I like them from a story perspective.
If you get promoted, there are more people beneath you, so it was necessary to have more people to show that Aoi, like, if she got promoted and she didn't have understudies or people that she was, like, you know, giving directions to. It would be kind of a meaningless promotion. I liked that they both had this where they needed to do the PV, and she basically said, go around and tell everybody they need to prioritize this certain work.
Yes.
Yeah, both of them tackled that pretty good. Like, the person would always say, like, well, I'm going to have to put down everything I'm doing and then immediately start on this if I'm going to try to do the PV for that scene. And they went, okay, could you do that, please? It's just over and over again. These like I don't know. It was like they just made it so the other person had to talk to a wall that was just like, yes, please do that. So I liked that they even, I guess there was a nice mix of them randomly getting lost, but also like being able to like pass down directions and enforce them when they were told what to do by Aoi.
And it seemed like, to an extent, ignorance was bliss. Like, they were asking the animators to do things, or the staff to do things, regardless of the consequences, because they weren't really completely aware of what the consequences were for what they were asking.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of Aoi going to Kanno and asking him to come work on her episode. She just had no clue of, like, the what a big situation it was, and she didn't really understand what the consequences might be of asking this legendary director to work on her episode.
Yeah.
So I thought it again, it was like an echo of something that she'd already done. I really enjoyed that. So the other one is Kunogi. Miles, how do you feel about Kunogi?
I mean, I think I already talked about this to the extent that I like have opinions about her. I think she's only here because this is an anime.
Yeah.
And in a series that otherwise does a really good job of having people be based on real, like, again, with Satou and Andou, the biggest criticism I have about her should be that she's just not based on someone real.
Yeah.
And the 5 main girls are the only girls I want to be the in-universe only girls.
Yeah.
But unlike Satou and Andou, I don't feel any affection towards her. I don't feel like she adds like any charm or personality to the series. And I feel like her entire role is just completely fan service, even though she does, again, show growth in Emma in the same way that the 2 girls show growth in Aoi. I don't feel like that's justified by the amount of just cringe I experienced by watching her on the screen.
Well, that wraps up her very nicely, I think.
There was one good scene I liked with her.
Really?
Yes. Well, it was just a funny scene, but I thought the one joke I thought that was kind of okay was when Emma is drawing and it's got some, like, you know, kind of like happy music playing, and then the music stops and she sort of looks up and turns around and Kunogi's staring at her. And she jumps, but then, I mean, she immediately recovers. But I think that's just kind of like a good quiet person in the office kind of joke, where, you know, the person comes up behind you and taps you on the shoulder and then you lose your shit. That was okay. I liked that joke.
There was one moment in earlier episodes where Emma's watching, I can't remember who she's watching now, but she's watching someone else draw, and she knocks over a bin and she starts apologizing, only to realize that the person drawing hasn't noticed her at all.
Oh yeah. Was that Iguchi?
Was it Iguchi? I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Miles, do you know the scene I'm talking
I don't remember.
Okay. But I thought maybe that was a reference to the fact that she's growing, but she's not quite at that level yet where she can get completely hyper immersed.
Where there could be a fire in the building and she wouldn't notice.
Yeah, and she just wouldn't notice, exactly. Right. So she's not quite at her professional peak yet, which makes sense. She's still growing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last new employee, Hiraoka.
Woo!
Peter, how did you feel about Hiraoka?
He warned them, right? When they first meet, they said, "Please introduce yourself." He says, "I have a lot of connections, but what did he say? Like I'm an overbearing asshole or something to that effect. I don't work well with other people or something like that." And he made good on that threat. So I think they've sort of showed, like, I appreciated that he was introduced that way, because I do think that some of the things that he's shown have been that he is well connected and really does know what he's doing a lot of the time. But on the other side, he's just kind of a jerk, and he doesn't really work well with other people, and some of the decisions he makes are kind of inimical to working well together, like not going to the morning meetings. He doesn't know what's going on in the office, and hopefully that'll change now that Aoi chewed him out. He's not as bad as Tarou, of course, but yeah, he is kind of like needlessly a jerk who puts people down for no reason.
Well, I question whether he's not as bad as Tarou, actually,
Oh, yeah.
because I thought that he and Tarou are two kind of different sides of the same coin of the male co-worker making a female boss's life difficult or female co-worker's life difficult. So Tarou makes Aoi's life difficult because he's completely incompetent and he doesn't care. Whereas Hiraoka is competent, he knows how to do his job, but he doesn't want to support Aoi. He doesn't feel part of this team in any way. In the way that Tarou really does feel part of the team, he's part of Musani.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking to his own career, he's ambitious, but he is a part of the team in that sense. Whereas Hiraoka has absolutely no interest whatsoever in fitting into their routines, into getting to know the others. He's not sociable in the slightest. And that, for Aoi to kind of manage him, that's a huge challenge. And it's one that she doesn't face with Tarou at all, because he's fine going along to the drinking parties and like watching the things that they've created. He really does get into it. So in some ways I had to acknowledge that Tarou isn't quite the worst, which I wasn't thrilled about. But yeah, Hiraoka's pretty bad in some ways. I imagine, like, if it were me in Aoi's position, she's new to this and she's trying to manage him as well. And he's undermining her at every step. That's really hard for her. And I hope that the steps she's taken to deal with it do actually pay off. I imagine they will. But
Yeah.
that was a little bit hard to watch. So I hope that develops in the way I want it to.
I think it struck me as a bit more realistic because, well, I guess in Taro's situation, it's maybe like a kind of cultural thing where I could see somebody like Hiraoka in a American workplace, but Tarou, I feel, would just get fired very quickly. So that's like somebody you would consistently need to butt heads with because he's like technically doing his job. It's just like he's making everyone else's jobs harder in ways that is difficult to like put on a reason that you got fired. So, and it seems like what she's doing to deal with him is sticking as opposed to Tarou, where it's just like he doesn't notice when people are directly telling him that he should go jump off a cliff. So, yeah, I guess maybe I feel like there will be a better payoff with him. But yeah, when you say it that way, I can see it's basically he's kind of just there to make her job harder. So,
yeah.
And in kind of a way where you have to question. Maybe I don't remember who brought him in. Was it the ponytail guy?
I don't remember.
Yeah, kind of.
I don't remember either.
Depending
actually.
on who's like working in the office. Yeah, maybe they just randomly brought him in. Like, would he act the same if it was the Honda running things, or would it be different?
And that's what I wondered.
Yeah,
I did wonder that. So, yeah, I don't know. Genuinely don't know. But he directly challenges Aoi's authority, whereas Tarou just doesn't necessarily respect. Well, I don't know if he actually disrespects Aoi. He doesn't do his job properly, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily anything to do with Aoi herself. It's just Tarou being completely incompetent.
I don't think they take Tarou seriously enough to feel disrespected, even if he would.
Yeah.
And I also don't think he has enough. I don't think he's like the type of person who would disrespect someone purposely. He disrespects someone because he's so full of his own self and like, obsessed with his own world. But he would never go out of his way to disrespect someone, and he would genuinely feel bad if he ever disrespected someone.
So how do you feel about Hiraoka, Miles?
I love Hiraoka.
Controversial.
He is the worst character in the show. He's way worse than Tarou, and I love to hate him so much.
Wow.
I think he is a fantastic addition to the show. And I just don't like the difference between Tarou and Hiraoka is night and day. Like, so one of my biggest shameful secrets is I actually relate to Tarou way more than I probably should. Like, especially like I think back to like college Miles, like that era Miles, and that was actually just me.
Oh no!
I was always Hiraoka. And I feel like I've grown up a lot since then. And so watching the character is actually kind of cringe-inducing and frustrating for me to see, like, yeah, I was... And, I mean, this is maybe why I jumped to his defense and say, he would never do anything, like, evil. He would just be a dumbass. And that's why he would do something rude. Because, like, I'm like... Because he's me. He's a younger me. And the fact that he's also based on the director, like, I understand. Like... anyway, but Hiraoka is just the worst kind of person, like my least favorite kind of person. I think cynicism is like the worst possible approach to life. I think being jaded day one at a new job shows that you're not worldly, that you're just an insufferable person. And I feel like the fact that he can get away with that represents a lot of where business culture, and this is certainly not exclusive to Japan or anime, but just where international business culture is, where you're actually way better off being a Hiraoka than a Tarou. And that's maybe good, maybe bad. I like to just think it's bad, because you can't grow out of that, but you can grow out of being a Tarou, as evidenced by me and the director of SHIROBAKO.
Mars's co-workers, if you'd like to comment on this, please do.
I'll definitely be looking at The Office differently on Monday.
Okay.
Like I said, I grew up, but no, he's the worst, and the way he treats Aoi is just unacceptable.
Well, in the next 6 episodes, hopefully we'll be able to wrap up Taro's arc in a way that's somewhat satisfying, I'm hoping. Peter, where do you want to see it go from here? Final 6 episodes.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I would like my prediction about Sugi to be right. Because...
Which one? Which one was that?
About her getting the role of, I think it was Arya or Risa, something
Shizuka.
like that. No, that's the name of the character that Shizuka would be getting the role of Arya. Okay. I think it's Arya. Hopefully less of the... I guess I don't mind Pirate Girl and the Teddy Bear. If they just return to their previous role, that'd be really great. If they just did what they used to do, I felt like they were really cool in that capacity. Like, I know both of you said that Hiroka seemed kind of unmanageable, but I mean, he went to the meeting, even though he was kind of sitting in the corner. And actually, that was a cool scene where Tarou is the one who ends up coming up to him and goes like, "Hey, we're coworkers. Let's celebrate together." I'm like, oh my god, did you do something cool? So I hope like maybe like some of their bad parts cancel each other out. Like he could maybe tell Tarou how to do his job, and Tarou could maybe keep dragging him to events and make him a bit more enthusiastic about his work, something like that. That would be really interesting. But
that's a really interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. I would also just like to see, I think Aoi's handled him pretty well, but to be able to see that she has some effect on him and maybe create some improvements would be nice. I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah, things have been pretty good past some weird exposition, so... just maintain the course, I guess.
I think I enjoyed these 6 episodes much more than any that have come before. Really? I think absolutely. Seeing Aoi in boss mode has just been fantastic. I've enjoyed every minute of Aoi just doing her job and showing that she's capable and competent, and she's still struggling, but she's not how to say, she's struggling but she's not drowning. She's coping. And I think that seeing that growth that we had in the first 12 episodes kind of be the foundation that they're building on now, that is so satisfying to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing that develop even more. Same with Emma. I thought that her growth has been really lovely so far. I really look forward to seeing her build even more confidence in herself. It'd be nice to have more of a focus on the 5 of them before the end. It would be nice if Shizuka comes into this production, which I think she will, then it would be really great to have all of them in the room together watching the anime that they worked on. And it's not going to be their 7 lucky warriors or whatever it is, but that's still really meaningful. It means they're all on the right path to achieve their dreams, which is always great to see. I've given up on Segawa. I don't think we're going to get anything from her. And I'm so sad about that. I want to know what the deal is with her and Endo. I want to know why she... doesn't get involved more in the story, why they haven't involved her more in the story. I thought maybe there'd be some reason for that, some career related reason, and we just haven't seen anything. So I'm giving up on ever finding out. I think she's just been a bit like Kaori. She just kind of shows up, serves a purpose for a little bit, and then walks away. Yeah, I think I have confidence that it's all going to wrap up in a way that I find rewarding. I'm definitely pleased that I've watched it. Mm-hmm. So that's a positive way to go into the final 6 episodes, I think.
Yeah, one consistent thing about the show is every subplot is wrapped up in a very satisfying way. Very, very cathartic, especially if you're like kind of a hardcore anime fan. They really like reinforce the everybody loves anime, and and I don't know, like the thing with Iguchi. I don't know. I had the expectation that no matter, even if I don't like certain parts of a subplot, the ending will be satisfying. So I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And I look forward to seeing what they do with the new characters who've just come in. My expectation is that by the end of the series, we see all of them on a path to kind of grow as people in a positive way. And I would love to see that, especially for characters like Hiraoka, who currently is really difficult. It would be nice to see him softening a bit over the course of the series, maybe getting a bit more involved. Mm-hmm. So we'll find out next time. Miles, anything surprised you about our discussion, or is it more or less as you expected?
No, this is probably the biggest gap I would have expected.
Oh, really? What did you expect?
Yeah. I thought you guys would talk a lot more about Iguchi.
Okay.
And her subplot and her... So, like, she also got promoted. So, basically, in this 6 episodes, we see 3 women get pretty significant promotions. And I think... I thought we were going to spend most of this episode discussing the how and why of that and kind of the like what that means for this kind of workplace environment. Because we, in the 2 other episodes, we talked a lot about the workplace environment rather than specific plot points. So I thought that was an interesting switch. Aoi getting ahead because her superior left, which, you know, there's a lot to say there, right? Iguchi getting it because they're taking a chance on her. Like, she's just worked hard, and, you know, I thought it was really validating that the reason she got that opportunity and that really cool role is not because she was aggressively seeking it out, but just because she worked hard and she was recognized for her talents. And then Emma getting a, like, not a real promotion, but kind of getting a mentorship role, just because they recognize and value her within the company. All 3 of those I thought were really, those were really valuable to me. So I was surprised we didn't talk more about that. Not that I'm upset or anything.
I don't know. To me, it felt more like, I may be wrong on this, but it felt more like they were the ones who were there. They were the ones who were left. So Aoi was kind of the only choice because the other alternative was Tarou. And Iguchi was not the only choice, but when Ogasawara put her forward, she became the only choice. And it was really validating that she got that support from Ogasawara. But I think if they'd said no to Iguchi and Ogasawara said no to them, they would have been really stuck. So it did feel like they were put in kind of a fait accompli. But I don't know, maybe that's a really bitter way to look at it. I'm not sure.
I think, especially with Iguchi, yeah, because they could have... character designers you can get from... I mean, you can't get a character designer from anywhere, but they certainly have an entirely large cast of animation directors who could have done the same thing. Okay. Like, it could have been Tagawa-san. It could have been anyone.
Okay, maybe that was kind of necessary context then to appreciate the gravity of that particular promotion.
And then the other thing that I was interested in is maybe this is also me really liking the character, but of the 5 main girls, I really, of course, like Aoi. She's the main character for a reason. But Diesel-chan, Midori gets a lot of screen time this 6 episodes, and I really liked seeing kind of her role within everything. And we talked about like that one aside from the director, the whole don't say that's sexist. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But her role within the studio is a very interesting one. Just kind of to examine, just seeing her relationship. I forget the head writer's name.
Just
like,
is it Mike?
Yeah,
Mike
yeah. That sounds right.
The guy in the flat cap.
The guy in the flat cap. Kind of to see her be very interny.
Yes.
And her be just completely, I don't know, unfazed by being in this complete position of she's just so desperate to do anything and to get any work done. And because of that desperation, or maybe desperation is not the right word, but because of that just intense, unending drive, she ends up like kind of squeezing in right out of college in a pretty interesting and engaging role.
Yeah.
And I think that was exhilarating to watch. I was exhilarated.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where she kind of showed a skill so prominently that they kind of decided that was something they wanted rather than having a need they needed filled. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
It's what they like looked at what she could do and they said like, oh, we could really use something like that around here. We didn't even know that's something we needed, as opposed to like we have this set role that every production company has, and there's a vacancy and we need to fill it. She like proved so valuable they decided to create a position for her.
And then I guess the last thing that I was surprised we didn't talk about is Aoi's job is miserable and it's so hard.
I thought her job as an assistant was miserable and hard, though, to be honest. This just felt like, the same thing squared.
I mean, I think she's not getting any more or less stressed out, but just because the stakes have been raised, she, like, anything she gained from getting ahead of it before is now lost.
What do you mean it's lost?
So basically it's kind of like in a video game how you can level up a bunch, but then when you go to the next level, all the enemies are stronger too. And so it's just as hard as it was before.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
I don't feel like that's necessarily the case though, because it's not like she's learning specific skills. It's more like she's learning coping mechanisms and she's building networks. And those seems to be the things that are paying off now. But
and that is true.
Yeah,
doesn't she seem just as stressed as she did last season?
Yeah, but I kind of feel like that's inherent to the job. Honda seems stressed all the time as well. It just seems like a horrible job to me.
I don't know. I don't think, like, there was a couple in the first core scenes where she, like, has a breakdown and needs help. I don't think she's actually gotten direct assistance from anyone yet. Also, there's the dynamic where, like, they had that scene where she was cleaning the glass where they used the two toys to kind of show you what she was thinking, but they've sort of stopped using that as a mechanism to like look into her head now. So I don't really remember getting the feeling that she felt like lost like she did in the last scene. Like the biggest one was when like 8 things were going wrong and there was like she like sat there for 5 seconds and then immediately came up with like a task for everybody to complete.
Yeah.
She was still stressing out. I guess the very end of the last episode was the one where she was like, oh, I actually don't have enough people to deal with all this. How am I going to do it? And then Erika comes back.
Yeah,
that was the one moment where I felt like she was trapped and then somebody shows up.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing how their relationship has changed from when the early episodes Erika was kind of protective towards her and supporting her. That support, the nature of that support will naturally change now that Aoi is in a more powerful position. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Quick question.
Yes.
Did either of you roll your eyes when Erika showed up at the end of episode 18?
No.
It had that slow pan up her. No.
I was thinking, I guess that, I don't know. I was thinking kind of like, would that shot be very different if it was like like a hero arrives? I don't know, where you see the boots and you're like, oh, is it Gandalf or something like that, and then it pans up and it's Gandalf.
Gandalf?
Well, yeah, where the hero arrives at the last minute, or like especially if it's the unexpected person, I think they would use a pan up shot in that situation because you're not quite sure who it is yet, and then it reveals that it's the person.
We're in the middle of a season of My Hero Academia, and you go to Lord of the Rings.
I don't. Well, has that scene happened in My Hero yet? Okay, so is it All Might? Those are pretty muscly quads. Is it All Might? Yeah. So yeah, but I felt like that was maybe a dramatic choice instead of a fan. That was my impression, at least. I guess it could have been interpreted that way too.
I mean, I think while you can definitely argue that this was so yes, you could say that, but I guess I'm definitely coming from the perspective of having followed every use of the SHIROBAKO official hashtag for the last 3 years, which is to say that a lot of people will post that GIF or like that combined image as something that they're very interested in other ways. So maybe I'm letting the fandom get to me a little too much, but
poison the well.
I mean, the tilt up in general is a way of introducing characters in different contexts, which I don't particularly like.
And it's something I've monitored more closely at different points in time. And the amount of times that women are introduced with this kind of slow tilt up their body, it's something that I don't like. But now I think I've become a bit used to it. So there's a chance that I just didn't clock it, because anime does it all the time, especially for female characters. It does it for men too, but not quite as often, I think, based on my experience. So yeah, I didn't notice it, but that's probably just because it's been completely normalized for me. Thanks, anime.
You're right.
Okay. I think that wraps it up for today. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you want to find more of our work, you can go to www.animefeminist.com. You can find this podcast on SoundCloud, on iTunes, and on Stitcher. You can find us on Twitter at animefeminist, on Facebook at facebook.com/animefem. We now have a Tumblr, animefeminist.tumblr.com, and we do have a Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/animefeminist. We're now comfortably beyond $900 in income, and we have, as a result, begun weekly podcasts, which is great. So you are listening to, hopefully, the third of 4 weeks worth of podcast episodes in a row, which is the first time we will have done that. Fantastic. Our next funding goal is to be able to pay the team when they edit a contributor's work. So I'm not sure where we're at now, but I think we're almost at $1,000. We need $1,140 to be able to pay people $15 an hour for their work. So if you can spare $1 a month, it really does add up. Please go to www.patreon.com/animefeminist and send us $1 a month to continue our work. One new thing we have introduced recently is we have a private AniFem server on Discord. So currently, patrons who are supporting us with $5 or more a month have access to the Discord server, and we're having some amazing conversations already. We have channels for anime, channels for manga, games, airing shows we can discuss without worrying about spoilers, and even comparing notes for Japanese study. So if you can spare $5 or more a month, we would love to see you there and start speaking with you in person. So thank you so much to Peter and Miles for joining me today. We will be back next time with episodes 19 to 24.